Native sisters disappeared in 1945. 40 years later, their cousin makes a surprising discovery. Blood drips from Sarah Blackfeather's trembling hands as she stares at the faded photograph hidden in the rotting floorboards of her grandmother's abandoned cabin. Two young women, her long-missing aunts, smile back at her, their eyes holding secrets that have haunted her family for 4 decades. Behind the photograph, scrawled in faded ink, "They didn't just disappear, they were taken." Sarah's heart pounds as she realizes what this means. Everything her family has believed since 1945 is a lie. The bitter Montana wind howls through the broken windows as Sarah clutches the photograph to her chest. After 40 years of whispers, tears, and unanswered questions, she now holds the first real clue to what happened to her aunts, Rose and Lily Blackfeather, who vanished without a trace from the Blackfeet Reservation in the winter of 1945. What Sarah doesn't yet realize is that uncovering this truth will put her own life in danger from the same forces that have guarded this secret for nearly half a century. But to understand how Sarah found herself in this decrepit cabin, with bloodied hands and a heart full of dread, we must go back to where it all began. Back to a different time on the reservation, when two sisters became caught in a web of deceit that would eventually swallow them whole. The winter of 1945 brings both hope and hardship to the Blackfeet Reservation. World War II is ending, and families eagerly anticipate the return of their sons and brothers. But for the Blackfeather family, this winter will become synonymous with heartbreak. Rose Blackfeather, 22, stands at the window of the family's modest cabin, watching snowflakes dance in the pale morning light. Her younger sister Lily, 19, sits at the kitchen table, practicing her penmanship. Both women are known throughout the reservation for their beauty and intelligence. Rose works as a nurse's aide at the reservation clinic, while Lily teaches at the local school. They represent the pride and future of their community. "Rose, do you think they'll let me apply to the nursing program in Missoula?" Lily asks, not looking up from her paper. Rose turns from the window, her breath fogging the cold glass. "They'd be fools not to accept you. You're smarter than half the white nurses I work with." What the sisters don't know is that their lives are about to intersect with powerful interests, government officials, land developers, and corrupt local authorities who have their eyes on resource-rich Blackfeet land. In the post-war scramble for America's resources, native lands are vulnerable, and those who stand in the way often find themselves silenced. 3 days later, on December 12, 1945, Rose and Lily Blackfeather leave their family cabin to walk to the clinic together. Their mother, Emma, watches them go, waving from the doorway as her daughters disappear into the swirling snow. It is the last time anyone in their family will see them. If you want to see how this incredible story unfolds and discover the shocking truth that's remained buried for 4 decades, stay with us. The journey of the Blackfeather sisters and their determined cousin will take us through one of America's darkest untold histories. Hours turn into days, days into weeks. The reservation mobilizes to search for the missing sisters, but the harsh Montana winter hampers their efforts. Emma Blackfeather, refusing to give up hope, walks miles each day calling her daughters' names until her voice gives out. Her husband, Joseph, rides with search parties until his horse collapses from exhaustion. Authorities from the nearby town of Browning show little interest in the case. The local sheriff, William Caldwell, suggests the girls likely ran off with boyfriends or headed to the city for adventure, a common dismissal when native women go missing. But those who know Rose and Lily refuse to believe this explanation. These are responsible young women with deep ties to their community and ambitious plans for their futures. As winter turns to spring, hope dims. The FBI briefly investigates but quickly closes the case, citing lack of evidence. The reservation community continues searching, but gradually, the Blackfeather sisters become just another tragic statistic, 2 more indigenous women who vanished without a trace. Emma Blackfeather never recovers from the loss. She keeps her daughter's room exactly as they left it, with their clothes neatly folded in drawers and their hairbrushes still containing strands of dark hair. Every night, she lights a candle in the window to guide them home. Joseph turns to alcohol to numb his pain, eventually drinking himself to an early grave in 1953, never knowing what happened to his beloved daughters. The Blackfeather family splinters in the wake of this tragedy. Emma's brother takes his family and moves to Wyoming, afraid the same fate might befall his daughters. Other relatives scatter across the country, carrying the weight of this unresolved grief with them. As the decades pass, the case of the missing Blackfeather sisters fades from public memory, becoming just another painful chapter in the long history of missing indigenous women. But within the family, the wound remains raw, the questions unanswered. In 1985, 40 years after the disappearance, Sarah Blackfeather returns to the reservation. Now 35 years old, she is the daughter of Emma's youngest brother, born 5 years after her aunts vanished. Growing up, Sarah heard countless stories about her missing aunts, saw their photographs on the mantle, and witnessed firsthand how their disappearance cast a long shadow over her family. After graduating with a degree in journalism from the University of Montana, Sarah decides to use her skills to investigate what happened to Rose and Lily. Her grandmother, Emma, now 83 and failing in health, makes Sarah promise to find the truth before she dies. "They're calling it the reservation's coldest case," Sarah tells her editor at the tribal newspaper. "But to my family, it's an open wound that never healed." Sarah begins methodically retracing her aunt's last known movements, interviewing elders who remember them, and combing through yellowed newspaper clippings and police reports. Most people are willing to talk, but Sarah senses an undercurrent of fear when she pushes too hard. Some doors close in her face. Others speak in whispers, glancing over their shoulders. One name keeps surfacing in Sarah's investigation: Sheriff William Caldwell, now retired and living in a ranch outside Browning. Known for his harsh treatment of reservation residents during his tenure, Caldwell has maintained his position that the Blackfeather sisters simply ran away. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below to let us know which part of the world is following this incredible true story. Your engagement helps us bring more of these untold histories to light. When Sarah finally secures an interview with the former sheriff, she finds a man in his 70s, defensive and guarded. Caldwell sits on his porch, his weathered hands gripping a coffee mug emblazoned with the American flag. "Those girls wanted more than the reservation could give them," he insists, not meeting Sarah's eyes. "It happened all the time back then, still does." But when Sarah mentions that she's uncovered records of unusual mining company activities on Blackfeet land around the time of her aunt's disappearance, Caldwell's demeanor changes. His knuckles whiten around the mug. His voice drops. "You'd be wise to let sleeping dogs lie, Miss Blackfeather. Some stories are better left untold." The warning only fuels Sarah's determination. She digs deeper, discovering that in late 1945, a company called Northwest Resources quietly filed permits for exploratory uranium mining on Blackfeet land. The Cold War was beginning, and uranium was becoming America's most precious resource in the nuclear arms race. More troubling, Sarah finds that both Rose and Lily had attended community meetings opposing any mining on tribal lands. Rose, with her medical background, had been vocal about the health risks. Their names appear in minutes of heated tribal council meetings just weeks before they vanished. When Sarah visits the tribal records office to request more documents, she finds the office has suffered a mysterious fire. Essential records from 1940 51946 are conveniently missing. The tribal clerk, an elderly man named Thomas Running Bear, slips her a note when no one is looking. "Emma's cabin. Look beneath." Sarah's grandmother, Emma, passed away 3 years earlier. Her cabin has stood empty since then, gradually succumbing to neglect and Montana's harsh elements. On a cold October morning, Sarah drives the rutted dirt road to the isolated cabin where her father grew up, where her grandmother spent her final years keeping vigil for daughters who never returned. The cabin's door hangs askew on rusted hinges. Inside, dust covers the sparse furniture. In what was once Rose and Lily's bedroom, their possessions remain untouched, a shrine to the missing sisters. Sarah runs her fingers over the spines of Lily's books, touches Rose's nurse's cap hanging on a peg. Thomas's cryptic message, "Look beneath," echoes in her mind. Sarah begins searching the cabin methodically, looking for anything hidden. In the main room, she notices a floorboard that seems slightly different from the others. Kneeling, she works her fingers into the edge and pulls. The board comes free with a groan of rusty nails. Sarah's heart races as she reaches into the dark space beneath and feels something, a metal box, cool to the touch. She pulls it out, hands trembling with anticipation and dread. Inside the box, wrapped in oilcloth, she finds a journal belonging to Rose, several letters, newspaper clippings, and the photograph that will change everything. The photograph shows Rose and Lily standing with a white man in a suit, his face partially obscured. On the back, in what Sarah recognizes as her grandmother Emma's handwriting, "They didn't just disappear, they were taken." As Sarah begins reading the journal, the cabin door creaks. She looks up to see a shadow in the doorway, the silhouette of a man holding something in his hand. Before she can react, a gunshot rings out. The bullet splinters the wood beside her head. Sarah ducks, clutching the precious box as glass shatters around her. In her panic to escape, Sarah cuts her hands on the broken window as she forces her way out the back of the cabin. Blood drips from her palms onto the photograph she still clutches, the moment where we first found her at the beginning of our story. Sarah runs through the forest behind the cabin, the metal box tucked under her arm, her pursuer's footsteps crashing behind her. Her only thought is to protect what she's found the first real evidence of what happened to her aunts after 40 years of questions. At the quarter point of our story, we've discovered that the disappearance of the Blackfeather sisters might be connected to uranium mining interests on tribal land, and someone is still willing to kill to keep this secret buried. Stay with us as Sarah fights to uncover the full truth about her family's tragedy. Sarah manages to lose her pursuer in the dense forest and makes it to her car hidden on a service road. With shaking hands, she drives to the home of Mary Little Dove, her father's cousin and one of the few family members still living on the reservation. Mary, in her 60s now, was just a child when Rose and Lily vanished, but she grew up hearing the whispers and theories. "I always knew you'd be the one to find the truth," Mary says, cleaning and bandaging Sarah's cut hands. "You have Rose's determination in your eyes." Safe in Mary's kitchen, Sarah carefully examines the contents of the box. Rose's journal reveals that both sisters had become aware of secret meetings between certain tribal council members and representatives from Northwest Resources. More disturbing, Rose writes about overhearing plans to forcibly relocate families from land rich in uranium deposits. "Lily and I confronted Councilman Baker today," one entry reads. "He warned us to stay out of it, said some things are bigger than us, bigger than the tribe. When I mentioned going to the federal authorities, he laughed and said, 'Who do you think is backing this?'" The last entry, dated December 11, 1945, the day before the sisters disappeared, is chilling. "Someone followed us home from the clinic today. Lily is frightened, but we've agreed we can't stay silent. Tomorrow we're taking what we know to Ben at the tribal newspaper." They never made it to the newspaper. Among the papers, Sarah also finds letters between her grandmother Emma and a Bureau of Indian Affairs employee named Richard Wilson, dated 1947. Wilson writes that he's been stonewalled in his unofficial investigation into the sisters' disappearance. His final letter warns Emma to stop asking questions if she wants to keep the rest of her family safe. "The government has done terrible things in the name of national security," Mary says quietly. "Those were different times. The uranium from our lands helped build the bombs that ended the war with Japan and fueled the Cold War that came after. But that doesn't give them the right to make two young women disappear," Sarah replies, anger rising in her voice. The photograph from the box shows Rose and Lily with a man Sarah now identifies, from newspaper clippings, as Edward Holloway, the operations manager for Northwest Resources. The sisters look uncomfortable in his presence. This photograph, along with Rose's journal, provides the first tangible connection between the mining company and the Blackfeather sisters. Before you see how this ends, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. We bring you these powerful untold stories every week, shining light on histories that deserve to be remembered. Sarah's investigation takes an unexpected turn when she discovers that Holloway is still alive, 90 years old, and living in a nursing home in Helena. Despite warnings from Mary about the danger, Sarah drives to Helena the next day, determined to confront the man who may have been the last person to see her aunts alive. The Pine Haven nursing home smells of antiseptic and cafeteria food. Sarah finds Edward Holloway in a sunroom, a thin, spotted hand resting on the wheel of his chair as he gazes out at the carefully manicured garden. Time has reduced the once powerful mining executive to a frail shell. "Mr. Holloway," Sarah says, sitting beside him, "I'm Sarah Blackfeather. I've come to ask you about Rose and Lily Blackfeather." The old man's rheumy eyes widen in recognition and fear. "After all these years," he whispers, "I knew someone would come eventually." What happens next stuns Sarah. Rather than denial, Holloway begins to weep. "Not a day goes by that I don't see their faces," he says. "Your aunts were brave women, braver than me." Over the next hour, Holloway confesses what he knows. The sisters had indeed discovered the illegal uranium mining plan, a classified government operation using Northwest Resources as a front. When they threatened to expose it, they were abducted by men working for the company and the local sheriff's office. "I didn't know they planned to kill them," Holloway insists, his voice breaking. "They told me the girls would be detained temporarily, maybe charged with something minor to discredit them. By the time I learned the truth, it was too late." "Where are they?" Sarah asks, her voice barely a whisper. "Where are my aunts buried?" Holloway looks at her with tears streaming down his face. That's just it. For 40 years, I believed they were dead. We all did. But last year, I received a letter anonymous, postmarked from Canada. Inside was a recent newspaper clipping from a small town in British Columbia, and in the background of the photo. He reaches for his bedside drawer with trembling hands and removes a folded newspaper clipping. Sarah takes it, her heart pounding. The article is about a community center opening on a First Nations reserve near Vancouver. And there in the crowd, standing slightly apart, is an elderly woman whose face, despite the years, is unmistakably similar to the photographs Sarah has studied her entire life. Lily, Sarah breathes, shock washing over her. That's Lily Blackfeather. One of them survived, Holloway nods. I don't know how, I don't know what happened to Rose, but if Lily is alive. Sarah's mind reels with the implications. Her aunt, a woman whose disappearance shaped her entire family history, whose absence haunted her grandmother until death, might still be alive. The story she thought she was investigating has just transformed entirely. Why would she never contact the family? Sarah asks, more to herself than Holloway. Why let us believe she was dead for 40 years? Fear, Holloway replies simply. The kind of fear that never leaves you. The men involved in this were powerful. Some of their proteges still are. As Sarah drives back to the reservation, her mind churns with questions. If Lily is alive, does she know what happened to Rose? Why is she hidden in Canada all these years? And most importantly, is it safe to find her now, or will Sarah's investigation put her long-lost aunt in danger once again? Upon returning to the reservation, Sarah discovers her motel room has been ransacked. The metal box is gone, but the pursuers were too late. Sarah had photographed every document and left the originals with Mary for safekeeping. More concerning, there's a note on her pillow. Stop now or finish like your aunts. The threat only strengthens Sarah's resolve. Using the newspaper clipping from Holloway, she identifies the First Nations community in British Columbia where Lily might be living. After sharing her evidence with a trusted FBI agent who specializes in cold cases, carefully omitting the possibility that Lily is alive, Sarah crosses the border into Canada. The coastal First Nations community welcomes Sarah with typical hospitality, but initial inquiries about an elderly woman matching Lily's description meet with polite confusion. After 3 days of careful questioning, Sarah begins to fear she's reached another dead end. Then, while having coffee in the community center, Sarah overhears 2 women discussing Agnes and her beautiful beadwork. Something about their description of Agnes's artistic style triggers a memory. Lily had been known for her distinctive beading patterns, combining traditional Blackfeet designs with her own innovations. Sarah follows this thread, asking to see examples of Agnes's work. When she's shown a ceremonial bag with a pattern she recognizes from items preserved in her grandmother's cabin, Sarah knows she's found her aunt living under a new name in a community that has protected her for decades. Agnes Lily lives in a small blue house overlooking the water. Now 79 years old, her face carries the same high cheekbones and determined expression Sarah has seen in photographs, though time has etched deep lines around her eyes and mouth. When Sarah knocks on her door, the elderly woman who answers freezes in shock. You look just like Emma, she whispers. I'm Sarah Blackfeather, Sarah says, her voice catching. Emma was my grandmother. I've been looking for you my entire life, Aunt Lily. The reunion is both joyful and heart-wrenching. Lily, who has lived as Agnes Williams for 40 years, embraces her niece with tears streaming down her face. I never thought I would see any of my family again, she sobs. I never thought it would be safe. Inside Lily's home, surrounded by art that echoes her Blackfeet heritage while incorporating Coast Salish influences from her adopted community, the full story finally emerges. The sisters had indeed been abducted on their way to the tribal newspaper, but what happened next was more complex than even Holloway knew. They separated us immediately, Lily explains, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Rose fought them. She always was the fighter. The last I saw, they were putting her in a different car. I was taken to a cabin outside town where Sheriff Caldwell made it clear we would be killed for interfering with national security interests. Lily was held for 3 days. On the 3rd night, a young deputy named Thomas, the same Thomas Running Bear who had helped Sarah decades later, secretly freed her. Thomas told me Rose was already dead, Lily says, her voice breaking. That they'd hurt her badly during questioning and she didn't survive. He said my body was supposed to be found in a way that suggested we'd been attacked by drifters. Thomas risked everything to help me escape. He gave me money and told me to run as far as I could, to never use my real name again, to never come back. Lily fled north, eventually finding refuge with a Coast Salish family who took her in without questions. She built a new life, always looking over her shoulder, always afraid that the powerful men who killed her sister would find her too. "I wanted to contact Mother to let the family know I was alive," Lily says, tears flowing freely. "But Thomas warned me they were watching all of you, that any attempt to make contact would put everyone in danger, so I carried the pain of separation along with the pain of Rose's death." What's most heartbreaking to Sarah is learning that her grandmother Emma somehow suspected or hoped that at least one of her daughters might have survived. The note on the photograph, "They didn't just disappear, they were taken," suggests Emma had pieced together parts of the truth. The candle she kept burning in the window until her death wasn't just symbolic, it was a beacon of hope. As Sarah and Lily talk through the night, a plan forms. With Holloway's confession, Rose's journal, and now Lily's testimony, they have enough evidence to finally bring the truth to light, and perhaps even justice for Rose 40 years later. Let us know in the comments below. Would you have risked contacting your family or made the same heart-wrenching choice to stay away to protect them? In the months that follow, Sarah works with journalists, tribal authorities, and sympathetic FBI agents to build a case against the still-living men involved in the Blackfeather sisters' abduction and Rose's murder. The investigation reaches the highest levels of government, revealing a pattern of exploitation of native lands for resource extraction during the early Cold War years. William Caldwell, now in his 80s, is arrested and charged with kidnapping and murder. Two former Northwest Resources executives face similar charges. Though some key perpetrators have died, the case becomes a landmark in addressing historical injustices against indigenous peoples. Lily Blackfeather, reclaiming her birth name after 40 years as Agnes Williams, returns to the Blackfeet Reservation for the first time since 1945. The community welcomes her home with ceremonies of healing and remembrance. In the tribal cemetery, she kneels at the empty grave that bears both her name and Rose's. "I lived a double life for 40 years, Lily tells the gathered community. "I had to become someone else to survive, but in my heart, I was always Lily Blackfeather of the Blackfeet Nation and Rose's sister." The most profound moment comes when Sarah takes Lily to visit Emma's grave. There, Lily places a candle, the same ritual her mother performed every night for decades. "I'm home, Mother," she whispers, "and I've brought your light back with me." In a final act of healing, Lily establishes the Rose Blackfeather Foundation for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, dedicated to investigating cold cases and supporting families searching for loved ones. The foundation's first headquarters, the renovated cabin where Emma kept her vigil, and where Sarah found the hidden box that broke open 40 years of silence. For Sarah, the journey brings closure but also a new beginning. Her investigation not only reunited her with an aunt she never knew, but exposed a chapter of American history that many had worked to keep buried. Most importantly, it brought Rose's story, and the stories of countless other missing Indigenous women, into the light where they could no longer be ignored. "Some truths take generations to emerge," Sarah tells a gathering at the Foundation's opening. "But as my Aunt Rose believed, and as my Aunt Lily lived to prove, the truth always finds a way to surface, no matter how deep it's buried or how long it takes." As Lily cuts the ribbon on the Foundation building, surrounded by 4 generations of Blackfeather family members who have traveled from across the country for the occasion, Sarah feels the presence of those who didn't live to see this day: her grandmother Emma, keeping her faithful vigil; her grandfather Joseph, broken by grief; and especially Rose, whose courage began this 40-year journey to truth. The story of the Blackfeather sisters becomes more than a family tragedy resolved. It becomes a catalyst for examining hundreds of cold cases involving missing Indigenous people across North America, bringing attention to an epidemic that has been overlooked for too long. It becomes a reminder that some secrets refuse to stay buried, and some bonds, like those between sisters, between generations, can never truly be broken, even by death or decades of separation. As the Montana sun sets over the reservation, casting long shadows across land that holds both painful history and renewed hope, Lily stands with her arm around Sarah's shoulders. Two women connected by blood and by a quest for truth, looking toward a future where such disappearances will no longer be dismissed or forgotten. "Rose would be proud of you," Lily tells her niece softly. "You have her spirit." Sarah squeezes her aunt's hand. "And yours," she replies. "The spirit that helped you survive to tell this story." Together, they turn toward the gathering of family and community, ready to write the next chapter in a story that began with loss, but continues with reclamation, remembrance, and the enduring power of truth to heal even the deepest wounds.